Hey everyone, this is alexusadays and we're continuing Playwright automation with TypeScript. So today we're in module 9 and we're going to talk about intercepting requests. Intercepting network requests in Playwright is a great way to test how the UI behaves under different API responses, especially when mock services aren't available or when the API is still in development. Let's explore how to observe, modify, and mock API requests during UI testing. Intercepting requests is useful when you want to simulate or mock backend responses without hitting real APIs, simulate expected API errors like user not found or validation failures, validate UI behavior when the API itself fails with server errors like 500 or 503, block unwanted requests, images, analytics, etc. We're going to take a look in more details in the network Playwright Dev Docs network in a second. Use page.route in Playwright to intercept, modify, or mock network requests made by a web page during test execution. Playwright page route has several methods that can be used. Use route.continue to modify and send. Use route.fulfill to mock response. Use route.abort to block requests. When combined with assertions, request interception becomes one of the most effective ways to validate front-end and back-end integration in Playwright. And more details at Playwright Dev Docs API class route. Alright, let's take a look at the docs and do some coding. Alright, so we're at the Playwright docs and we're at the network. So this is a page that talks about the network requests, responses, how to mock APIs, network mocking, HTTP authentication, proxy, network events, and so on. So pretty useful just to get familiar with it, read through it to understand what Playwright has to offer. And then what we will be using specifically today is route. So route is a class that has a bunch of methods associated to it. So like abort, continue, fallback, fetch, fulfill, request. So we will use some of the methods available on route to show you how you can actually intercept a request that's happening on the page and then fulfill this request with a mock data and send something else, not what the backend is sending, but you can actually trigger some error scenarios, or you can show some special cases just by providing a response that UI expects for different scenarios and not the one that API was actually sending, right? Okay, so now let's take a look at the code. Here we will start in the test folder with a new file, and let's call this intercepting or intercept.spec.ts, and we will start by importing. So let's go to our API tests and just import test and expect from Playwright test into the intercept file. And let's start with a describe block. So test.describe, test.describe, and here we want to intercept requests with Playwright. So let's call it with Playwright. So this is going to be our describe block. Make sure there's no .only tag anywhere else. So we're going to use .only on this describe block and remove it from the previous one that we had in the API testing. Okay, and let's start with the first case. The first one will be mock a successful API response to get a user with a local JSON file. Okay, so test get user mock with local file, async page. Now, do you remember that in the API we were actually using requests? We were not using the page because we were directly reaching out using get method to an API endpoint. Now, in this case, we will use route and we will use it with the page. So route is part of the page. And we're going to reach out to get user to. And it's giving us some local file. So we're not gonna do that like this. We're gonna store like a mock. So let's create in the test data. Let's create new file, user underscore to mocked, something like that. Dot JSON. And where the user to is coming from. So if you go to request response. Here, if you click on single user, you will see there's actual API response that come into the UI, and the UI using is that to display this body in the UI. So this whole body. So we're just going to grab that response that UI is showing, and let's store it in user2 mocked. And here, let's update something. So instead of Janet, we were at recres.in, we're going to say test user, first name test, last name, let's call him intercept or intercepted, and for the text I just want to say alexusadays. alexusadays. So for sure I want to know that my request was updated and will be updated to this particular data that we're going to use when we will be fulfilling the route. Okay, so we have a file. Now we need to read from that file. So we're gonna say const mock data, and it's gonna be JSON.parse and fs.read file sync, read file sync, test data, user underscore to underscore mocked .json, and fs is giving us some problems, so we need to import it. So import everything, so asterisk as fs variable from fs, something like that. So we imported it. Now it's going to be used. So we're going to read the file. Going to parse it as a JSON. So first we're going to read it as a JSON string. We're going to parse JSON to JavaScript object then, and then we're going to store it in the mock data, right? So then we're doing route, page route, and I'm just going to put asterisk here. So that means I will intercept every request, any URL, but has to end with /API/users2. And because we're accessing a particular page, it will intercept that when the UI is getting user2, right, on that page. So async route. Now here, we want to route fulfill status 200, content type application JSON. So the body, we need to convert object back to a string suitable for the HTTP response, right? Okay, so we're gonna do that. So JSON stringify, and we need to stringify mock data. So the JavaScript object we're storing here in mock data, we're actually sending back to a string. So this will be intercepted, and then instead of the body it has, by default, so this body, it will fulfill the response with this body, with stored in the mock data, and with all this updated information. Okay. So some other things that, well, we did all that. Now we actually need to do some navigation there and some testing. And we want to also close our describe block. So here, still within the test, we want to do await page go to request recres.in. So on the home page, that's where we're going. And then at the home page, let's trigger this route using the UI. So we'll say await page page get by text. And what is the text there on that page? Single user. So I'll grab it by this text and click on it. Get by text, single user dot click. So what will happen? It will click the single user. So first it will go to the page, then it will click the single user, and once the user is clicked, it will launch this request that we will be intercepting, because it will try to reach API users too. And then instead of getting the response, the UI, instead of getting the response it would typically get normally, so this one, it will be fulfilled by Playwright. So with the data that we provided in the file. Let's take a run. Let's run it. So npx playwright test dash UI. I want to run it using the UI so you can specifically see the response, how it's going to look. And this is intercept spec, and this is scribe block, and inside the scribe block, this is our test. So get user mock with local file. Let it run. So it reaches out. Locator click errors out. And there are two elements. So it's not a single, there are two elements on the page. So single user and single user not found. So let's grab it, locator, and see what suggests exact true. Okay, so Playwright suggests get by row link name single user exact true. So let's use this locator instead. So it's a unique one. So await here page dot get by row link name single user exact text equals true, and then click. All right, so updated the test. Let's run one more time. Intercept. Okay, here's the test case, and let's go. All right, so now it's clicking. And there's some other. This is, I don't know, this is something unrelated. There's some console errors, but this is something unrelated. Just some errors that are on the web page. So for us, what's important, so it clicked on this user and the response came through, and we can see what is the response now in the UI. Right? So after Playwright clicked single user and it intercepted the actual response that was coming back from the backend, and we fulfilled it with the data that we put in our mark file. So here's test user, first name test, and text is alexusadays, right? So everything that we had in the file came through, and we see it now in the UI. So this is one example. So we mocked a response and inserted it. Now let's do another case. Let's do some business logic here. So the user wasn't found. So simulate late error 404 error, user is not found. Okay, so test get user simulate 404 async page. Same thing. So what we want to do here is intercept the request and response with 404 error, and we're doing await page dot route user 23. So I'm just gonna have user 2, not 23. Same user. Let's see what happens if I use the same user, but instead of fulfilling it with the mock, I will fulfill it with a 404. So in 404, you know, the status code for 404 means that user is not found. And I will also send some body. The body will say user is not found. See how the UI actually handles it, if it's gonna parse it or not. And we can take the same route. We can say go to that link again, and then just click on the single user, and it will trigger a request being sent, right? So let's do that. And again, I'm gonna do npx playwright test. Let's run it. But now we're going to be running another case. So intercept, describe block. Here's within describe block, get user simulate 404 error, run it. And I'm kind of curious how it's going to look and what's going to happen if it receives 404. We don't really know, right? Because I don't know how the UI actually gonna handle this. So you see, we're clicking on it. This is the state before the click. This is state after the click. So when we clicked, and we can also look into the network. No network calls. Were there network calls? Let's hold on. Let's rerun this. Okay, yeah, here we are. Okay. So here we will find a route. This was users and user 2. So here is this request, and we can see the response is coming back is 404, and the body is error user not found. And this is exactly what rendered to the single user, user 2. Now instead of receiving a 200 with our mock data, it's actually receiving the 404 that we put in as a response and showing the error message here. And we can see it in the network tab as well. User 2, 404 is being returned. All right. So if you have a bunch of error scenarios that you need to automate, but you don't actually have an API or user data to do all that, not the API, but yeah, user data, or maybe even not the API, but you know how the UI should respond to particular errors, you can put them all into the fulfill route and verify that the UI is actually rendering the errors properly and it shows what you expect it to show, right? So it's gonna save you a lot of time for automating things that maybe you have some limited data, test data for those things, or it's kind of hard to trigger specific errors in the real test environment with the real backend, but it will be pretty easy with intercept. Or I should say fulfill, but yeah, I call it intercept because you actually intercept requests, right, and responses. Okay, so this will simulate for error user is not found. And for the last one, let's do some blocking of images, like style sheet, font request. So essentially, we're gonna have everything stripped off. We just want to have some text and links. If you're testing functionality, well, you have to go and click through links, or you see that redirects are working, or you can click certain buttons. And page takes too long because there are a bunch of images, or tests take too long for the page to load. You can actually block all of those requests, and same way you can block any requests that are doing like analytics, data gathering, like anything that you provide for your resource type or for a specific link, you can block those, right? And if you block those, they're not going to show up on the page. So let's do that. In the third one, let's do block image requests to speed up page load, styles, and fonts, something like that. Okay, and then test. Let's call this block all images, styles, and fonts. Okay, so we want to intercept requests and block image, styles, and fonts. We're not going to do this. What we want to do, we want to grab all of the route. Everything is going to go through, and then route if const resource type is equal to request dot. So for this, we don't need all of this code. Bunch of code. Okay, so we gotta grab a resource type first as a variable, and then we'll say if we have an image, a style sheet, or a font, and it's included in the resource type. So within the route, for every link that goes through inside the request, if image and style sheet or font was in the resource type, it is included in the resource type. We're gonna say this. So we're gonna say console log. I'm gonna say that blocked resource, and let's provide a URL. We're gonna do route abort, route.abort. So we're not gonna allow this route to show up on the page. We're not going to allow this to be rendered in the UI. No, just abort it. Don't go through with it. Else, if there's no such resource type being sent and your route looks normal, like there's no image, no style sheet, no font in the resource type, we're just going to allow route to continue. Route continue means just, go do your business as usual. This is our if else block. This is our test case, and close that. All right, and so before the test case ends, we want to actually go to the page, right? So await page go to, and here we go to the request recres.in. This is end of the describe block here. This is test case 3. Okay, let's run it. And you will see that anything that has resource type image, style sheet, or font, for this particular case, is not going to render any of those. And the page is going to look quite different. All right, so here's our intercept, describe block. Here's block all images, styles, and fonts, and let's run it. So by blocking all of this, you will significantly reduce the load page time, but also as a result, you see what you get, right? So if you verify if links are clickable, or you need to do some very functional tests, you can speed up loaded page by blocking resources, by blocking analytics, by whatever you need to block. You can put it in, provide it, and this is what you will see, right? Stripped out of a bunch of content type. And you see in the console it's saying we'll block in this CSS, again, more CSS, PNG, JPEG, resources. So every resource that was blocked, you can see it in the console showing up, telling what it blocked. And this is coming from this message. So before aborting the route, it just says what we are aborting. This is it. Again, take a look into the documentation, read a little bit more about route and what it can do, and read a little bit about Playwright networking, get familiar with it. But just by using this, mocking successful responses or mocking different errors, or maybe if you need to abort some of the things being loaded, you can generate a lot of scenarios that will test different things, even if you don't have your test data set up to test them, right? You can just provide it directly to the UI and see how the UI handles them. Okay, so this was alexusadays, and hopefully you find this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.